Good day, everybody. Welcome to Speak. My name is Ligia Grenald, and today we're going to have a special guest, and we're going to be talking about burnout. See, we have been going through a lot of things lately, and life is not very easy, right? So we are going to be talking with a special person in my life. Her name is Melissa Shepherd, and she is my cousin. And let me tell you a few things about Melissa. Let me tell you, she's a very interesting woman. Melissa serves as a clinician at the California Institute of the Arts and a German faculty in the School of Cultural and Family Psychology at Pacific Oaks College. Within her private practice, she has served audiences such as Los Angeles Police Department, Writers Guild America, UCLA Human Resources students, Los Angeles County African employees, and also she has been helping with the behavioral health at the Institute conferences. Currently, she is the vice president of the International Society of Black Latinos, which is an organization that endeavors to expand knowledge about Latinos and the African diaspora. So she is an interesting individual, people. And we're going to be talking a little bit about how did we get here and how we are experiencing burnout. Melissa, Michelle, Williams, welcome.
Thank you.
To speak.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ligia. I am so thankful to have this opportunity to have this conversation with you about what we're going through in this pandemic life. And I really appreciate all the work that you're doing in this process of keeping people aware about ways to build community. So you and I are always speaking the same language.
Yes, we are. Yes, certainly we are.
Yes.
So Melissa, you see so many things that are happening today. Let's take it a little back to 2020, okay, which for me was a year, which was a 2020 perfect vision of all of our flaws. So many things came out to the surface, Melissa. So yes, many injustices, so many sufferings, so many death. All of those things together. And 2021 has not made a difference. It continues. The saga continues. And now we are seeing and experiencing much more pain, trauma. And of course, this takes us to the burnout, right? In 2018, I had the privilege of working with you on your presentation of a beautiful book that is called From Burnout to Bliss. Guys, let me present you this book. It is, when I tell you, it is beautiful. This is a beautiful book.
Thank you.
Melissa wrote about her experiences in burnout, and I think her information is valuable today, more of because now is the time that we really need someone to talk to us about the burnout and its consequences. So, Melissa, what is burnout first and foremost?
Burnout is this experience of extreme physical, emotional exhaustion. And it has an impact, a negative impact on the way we see ourselves, our attitudes in relation to work, there are a number of things that are indicators of burnout. Things like really resisting anything that has to do with work, having a cynical attitude about it, even having physical reactions to the whole experience of, wow, it's time to go back to work tomorrow, or even arriving. And I'm talking about the way it unfolded pre-pandemic. But with the pandemic, there are additional layers of this experience of burnout. You know, imagine people who were already going through it before the pandemic, how rearranging their lives based on a quarantine, how that may have added to the burnout experience. And for those who were not in the throes of burnout, it caused burnout to develop. So many factors influence it. It's quite a layered experience. And yes, I went through burnout some years ago, and I mean, it really, really made it difficult to function. It's like you become robotic at work. And so it's something that really merits a lot of attention. There are many people in the world suffering through burnout.
Millie, if someone had told you that the book that you wrote in 2018 would be much more relevant today because of all the things that we're going through right now, because it is like, I could not call it a roller coaster because it's like it's nonstop, Melissa. It just, anytime you think that you're getting a little air, it's another thing and another thing and another thing, and we're getting to the point where we don't know how to react, what to do, how to feel, because it is just ongoing pain and ongoing trauma.
Constantly. Because not only
How
how
do we work?
yes, how do we manage it? That's a tall order. Because so much is going on other than our work responsibilities. You know, people are wearing more hats than ever because you know, having to support their children's educational experience online, and at the same time juggle their work responsibilities from home. Well, for those who were able to do their work from home, some people being frontline workers had to be out in the trenches, you know, and so navigating our responsibilities became so much more challenging than ever. And then on top of that, to be quarantined and witnessing these social injustices that are being visible to everyone, you know, because the media will bombard you with it. It takes an emotional toll to constantly be seeing that. Now, for people who have, for generations, experienced these social injustices by being part of oppressed communities, this information is not new. It's not new. Still, but it has an impact anyway. It has an impact anyway, and especially when you're already suffering through this experience of the pandemic and all that it involves. So much. So community is something that's necessary in order to move through this process. Connection. Connection, but
Mhm.
disconnection is one of the ingredients of burnout, a sense of disconnection from ourselves and others. So imagine how much more intense that disconnection is experienced in a pandemic. Much more intensely.
In your book, and I want to mention it. There is a chapter, if I recall, this chapter 3. Chapter 3 says, "Body whispers and then screams." I really don't think that at this moment that we are going through, my body whisper anymore. It's constantly scream this. I don't want this. I don't want to see this. I cannot live with this anymore.
Exactly. Exactly. The intention of naming the chapter "The Body Whispers and Then Screams" was to invite us all to reflect on how the body is constantly talking to us about what's happening in our inner world. The body is constantly talking to us, but during an experience of disconnection, such as burnout, we can't hear the body talking. And so in order to get our attention, the body gets louder through physical illness to get our attention. I mean, for me, back then, I was experiencing hair loss, constant sinus problems. My immune system was a mess. These are the things that the body will do to get your attention. So you're right, with the pandemic, there's no room for whispering. The body will scream now quickly.
Constantly.
Constantly, because this is just too much. None of us have experienced, well, let me just rephrase that. Most of us, unless we're at least 100 years old, have lived through a pandemic. My grandmother was born during the last pandemic, 1918. Yes, just like we inherit forms of coping and resilience from our ancestors, that most likely are helping to a degree in this pandemic, we also inherit pain, especially unattended pain. And so that really compounds this burnout experience. So yes, the body is screaming from the beginning. This is too much. It's too much. And it really gives me perspective on why people in their desperation would throw themselves out into the street without caution. That's the survival brain, that acts in haste. If we are in distress, we benefit from pausing before we take action or before we speak. But if we are not connected to those tools, if we're not connected to those tools, desperation is driving the car. And so we see a lot of it, and it's had a bad impact on the numbers, the incidence of infection. But it's a bad storm. It's a bad storm.
In one of your and it is a bad storm, Elisa. This is nonstop. It is, again, one on top of the other. We don't finish grieve on one when we're already having another impact.
Right.
And in one of your newsletters that I love, because I learn a lot from you. There is so much to learn from your experiences, and it gives you the opportunity of taking that experience, bringing it to today, and watching how we can make better arrangement for our body, for our mind, because it needs to be addressed. It needs to, and not only because we as human beings, we need to get adjusted to our peace, to our inner source, but we have to also help others. It's not only us, we also have to help others. And I remember in one of your newsletters, you said in quotes, the messiness of inherited mindsets and behaviors patterns have gone unchallenged. And when I read that, I said to myself, I said, my God, this is something that the Black community, we have been, this is our history for more than 500 years, right? So on top of that, we are trying to get over that part of the history where the narrative was something that we don't agree with, and trying to educate our people into better ways of coping. We still see ourselves today fighting and having to find ways to survive.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And how much can we stand?
Let me tell you something. We are a miracle. We are a resilient people. When you think about how for centuries we have endured oppression in many ways. We have been in survival mode for so long. And when these injuries go unattended, it's going to affect one generation after another. It's going to have an influence, a powerful one, on the way we interpret the world around us and inside of us. We have inherited this. And so I am perceiving the pandemic and the way it's put a magnifying lens on all the mess as an opportunity to look deeply into our healing. I do not doubt that because oppressed communities have experienced pain for so many generations and have had to survive so much, that survivalist way of moving in the world, has a narrative that influences the way we work, to the point of working ourselves down to the ground. So burnout develops in connection to our narratives. Yes, we refer to burnout as something that happens in the context of work. But all areas of our lives are connected. So, if there's poor functioning in the workspace, the result of this internal conflict, this turmoil, this poor functioning, this unhealthy relationship with our bodies and our minds, then it's going to affect our relationships in all areas of our lives. Well, there's a cultural context for that. There are cultural narratives that say, put yourself last. You can't stop working. You got to keep going. You got to keep going. You have to work twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times as much to have the opportunities that somebody with privilege gets on their first try. So these things influence the unfolding of burnout. Historical trauma is connected with it. And this pandemic really has made us, it's shaking us up. It's shaking us up. We are forced to see more of what we've been experiencing, and for people who avoid it, seeing our plight, they can't help but to see it now. Pandemic is lifting veils.
Yes, it is. And with so many veils, that is lifting, and that we are just here, just being unveiled with all the information that we're receiving. Where do we?
Uh-oh, the internet is doing things here.
Okay, did you copy the last thing that I told you?
I missed it.
You missed it? Okay, let me repeat. You mentioned that everything is, we're getting unveiled about a lot of things that are going on. So what I'm saying to you is, now with all of these things being unveiled to us, where do we focus? Where do we put our attention?
Where
do we
our
start?
attention? Where is our attention? I am learning that our attention needs to shift to developing a sense of connection in ways that are affirming of our lives. And that is not an easy feat for a person, for a people that is unaccustomed to thinking of themselves, talking to themselves in kind ways, in positive ways, because of buying into the oppressor's narrative that tries to convince us very intentionally that we are not worthy. And so it's time to learn about our strengths and go into our history to gain strength from it and build community in a way that supports healing of ourselves and each other. It's important that we learn deeply about our history so that we have a clear understanding of how come we move in the world the way we do. How come we talk to each other the way we do? How come we talk to ourselves the way we do? And transform that script, transform it with more conscience, It's a process. And I'm also learning that this is something that needs to involve people who have already been immersed in this healing process, to get their support, their wisdom. It's not enough to just go and read about our history. That's not enough, because some pain will come up as we learn about it, as we learn about our experiences. And we need support to deal with the pain that will come up. So
exactly,
we need to reach out and welcome those who have already been busy in this healing business, and let different areas of expertise participate so that it's a multidisciplinary experience, journey to healing. I have to tell you, for us, helping professionals, 2020 was like no other. I don't care how much training we have to be in the presence of someone's pain. we were so triggered with all that was going on.
Yes, we were.
What a platform for burnout.
In my area as well as a teacher. And you, we have spoken about this several times. And my 2 cents here is that we have to continue with education. There's no other way around this.
Yeah.
There's no other way around this. You have to educate people. You have to teach them. Yes, there's going to be pain. There's going to be trauma. Our history, our ancestors, they had a hard time. Their lives were, they were lynched. So many things happen. And it's not easy to read and to deal with all of that because the trauma and the pain comes in your DNA by generations.
Exactly.
So you have to definitely have people that can help you, understand what is going on and to move on.
Yeah.
To move on.
Yeah. I mean, this pandemic experience and the way it intersects with social injustice and sets the tone for burnout, is particularly difficult for marginalized communities. It has its very specific experience. And that's not to say that people who are not in the oppressed communities or, not perceived as being part of the oppressed communities, that's not to say that their experience of the pandemic has been easy. No, in our humanness, feeling isolated, feeling disconnected is simply something not natural. Let me rephrase that. To isolate ourselves goes against the fact that we are social beings, and so in our humanness, that definitely was a piece of the suffering that many people have been going through in this pandemic, particularly if they were having some really big challenges before the pandemic. And so now being at home, they were really faced with those challenges head on in ways that, you can't be distracted when you're free to be out in the world.
Right.
So when unconscious things are becoming conscious, whew, that's not an easy ride. Not an easy ride.
It's too much.
It's too much.
It's too much.
Too much. It's
too much.
Emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually taxing, to say the least.
So my question to you, in order to leave this this information for all of the people out there that are going through this burnout, that you might not think of it as a burnout, that you may not know that is a burnout, but your body is constantly triggering you and telling you you're going to lock down. The word for this is to make pause. That is what I've learned in your book. You need to pause. But how can we tell our people to pause these days?
Wow, it's a challenge. It's a challenge because even though we recognize that there is power in pausing, so much so that it exists between inhaling and exhaling. And it allows us to catch perspective. When you feel pulled in a million directions, you're likely to feel that pausing is a luxury. So that by itself is a challenge. Just listening to people that I work with in therapy, colleagues, friends, family that are feeling stretched. We often talk about how hard that is. Yes. However, without creating space to pause and sense what the body is saying, to then take action accordingly, things will only go further south for our physical, mental, emotional health, and therefore our relationships. So as difficult as it is to feel confined by a quarantine and met with all these emotions that we're looking for a door to exit because we are pushed down. As hard as that is, without pausing to become more familiar with the body's experience and learn to gradually I'm going to say tolerate and stretch that window of tolerance for discomfort, we'll be in trouble. It is important that we learn new ways of being with discomfort so that we can move through it and heal. And healing is something that ought not to be attempted in isolation. We need to allow support in this process of learning how to be with our discomfort in new ways. And so it's interesting that this pandemic has caused us to really stretch our creativity to find ways to connect, to find ways to connect with each other. It's telling us about how much we need connection in order to live and in order to heal. I have to say, though, I'm really concerned about how people who, based on the disparities that existed and continue to exist now in the pandemic, don't have the technology to do what you and I are doing and find this way to connect. So you can imagine how much harder it is for people in those circumstances to use their creativity in order to connect and connect safely.
Yes.
With all these regulations to keep us from getting infected. I mean, it's layered. It's not a tidy answer. It really is not a tidy answer.
Well, Meli, I think we will have to continue to strive for the best of our mental health.
Yes. Yes.
It's not going to be easy. We are just facing, again, each day, so many different things that we see on the media, so many different things that we see on the TV here and the, so it's up to each one of us to make our best effort and in our best interest to take that pause that you're talking about in this beautiful book. People, I really need to show you the book again, please. It's important. Every and each page in this book is a little, it's like a bomb. Because Melissa has gone through so much and she's sharing this with us. And it has come so handy today. Today, the book is so handy because we need to know what to do with ourselves. Because if we are not okay, our families are not okay, our friends are not okay, we cannot help anybody.
Exactly.
We need to take care of ourselves first in order to help someone else.
Exactly.
I really wish that you guys can get the book and read it thoroughly and understand that there is a way of treating this thing, of thriving for the best. And not only for you, but for your family, for your friends, and your loved ones and people that you can just reach out and help. So Melissa, I want to read a little piece of another of your newsletters that it caught my attention, and I want you to tell our audience, your words for them, because now we're going to do this the same reading for our Spanish speakers as well, because we have our English speakers and we have Spanish speakers that we have to take care as well. So I'm going to read this piece, and it says, it is very interesting. It says, the whispers of our ancestors invite us to pause in the midst of the mess, to catch perspective and realize that if they could endure triumph in the face of social injustice, so can we.
Yes. Yes. I believe that so strongly. I'm thankful for all that our ancestors dreamed of for us and endured for us. They gave us the material to dream, to heal, to know that it's possible. It is possible. We're here. We're here.
Mm-hmm.
We're here.
We are.
We're here. I'm thankful for all of the people that I have been learning from and whose teachings contributed to my writing process, which was not only about my burnout experience, but the burnout experience of others. It was part of my healing to write this book. And my hope is that it can be supportive of others' healing. That's my hope. That's my prayer.
That's my prayer as well, Melissa. Well, Melissa, I cannot thank you enough for being here.
Thank you.
For those words of yours, that the message is to give peace to our bodies, to our souls, to our minds.
Mm.
Thank you so much for being here. Well, thank you so much more for being in my life because she's my cousin and I love her dearly. My God, I cannot express it enough. I cannot stress as much more.
I
Melissa,
feel the same. I love you to life.
yes. Thank you so much for all of those words. They have so much meaning, not only for me, but for all of those who are listening and all of those who are viewing us right now. I hope these words can contribute to the healing process for each one of us. Thank you, my darling.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me and letting this technology that we're living with be an opportunity to continue connecting with the community and invite reflection.
Yeah. And all I can say to just close this is another one of your quotes that says, it's all in the whispers living inside of us.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much for all of your knowledge and for sharing it with us.
Thank you. Thank you. It was my pleasure.